Jesse Armstrong. The OG.
Well, I'm very, very pleased to be here. I'm already having a nice time, and that's a great piece of intro music. And if you don't want to do any freestyle rapping, let's do the questions.
No, because Jeremy Strong is so good doing that I'm not good. So let's start strong. If we have it, we have something that we need you to see. We have it. That's a kind of Dear Jesse, what the fuck is that, man?
You want to know whether it's underlined or?
Yes, please. We all want to know, really. Yes.
Well,
please stand up. No.
It was difficult to get precisely the right level of ambiguity. And in the end, I asked if the art department would let me do it myself. So I did draw that line, and I don't know what was in Logan's head, but it has occurred to me that if you were going to cross out someone's name, you would start in the middle, right, and cross it out like that. And if you were maybe going to underline, you'd start underneath. So. True, right?
You believe that? Yes? Okay. He oblidat dir que gràcies a l'Spain Film Commission, que si no, no estaríem aquí. Un aplaudiment per ell, sisplau. Que m'estava mirant malament, perdoneu. So, Jesse, what was the spark for Succession? The first time you thought about the show, or doing a show about, rich people?
Yeah, well, there was a long process coming up to it. I won't do the long, boring version, but I did write a screenplay about the real Rupert Murdoch, very famous in Anglo-American and Australian media. I'm sure you know him in Spain too, but he owns Fox, the news station in the US. So I wrote a screenplay about his real family, long time ago, a decade ago. Uh-oh. It's the truth serum. So I wrote that. It was very hard to get made. It died, like a lot of projects die. But then 10 years later, when me and my writing partner, who I'd written with for years, Sam Bain, finished doing the sitcom that we wrote for British TV, Peep Show, I was thinking of trying to do something else. And I read a number of books about these media moguls, especially Sumner Redstone, Robert Maxwell, another famous one in the UK. There's the Mercers, there's the Disney family. There's a great book about the Disney family called Disney War. And it started to occur to me that, oh, wow, there are all these media owners, and they have a lot of similarities, and it would free you up to not have to do the particular story, real story of one family. You could do a fictionalized version and take stories from all these business situations, and also from history and from Shakespeare, and all Successions are traditional place for stories and for trouble, often trouble in royal families and empires. So you could steal a lot of stories, and that was very attractive. So that was the origin, right? Taking the real world media owners and just being able to take Succession stories from everywhere.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I would like to know how was the moment you told Logan Roy that you're gonna die?
So we're doing spoilers.
It's there already. Sorry.
It was tough. Brian's a considerable figure, man of stature, and so. One thing I did do was we do this American system of the writing room, So me and 5, 6, 7, up to 10 writers all together. And so we planned out that season, the final season. And early on, I thought, oh, maybe this is the one, Logan's going to die. And maybe we do it a little bit earlier in the season rather than late, as would be maybe more traditional. Because there are a number of reasons. Interesting, give you more space to explore how his children reacted, how the world reacted afterwards. But one thing I made sure that we were really certain we were going to do it before I booked the lunch with Brian and said, okay, Brian, let's have lunch. I've got some things to tell you about the next season, because I definitely didn't want to be changing my mind 2 months later. But he was nice, but it was tough. It was tough, you know, we can joke about it, but it is tough telling a colleague who you love and think their work is brilliant that you think that part of the story needs to end, because, a little bit of them can't help feeling sad that it's over, and so it was tough. He was professional, and we ended well, but I was scared walking to see him for that lunch.
How was to work with him and Jeremy Strong, because both seem like, you know, a little bit nuts.
Oh, well, I haven't had much wine yet, so I will keep it very politically sensitive. They're both... They've got different styles. For me, it was never a problem. You know, Brian has the English theatrical tradition of kind of just turn up and do it. Jeremy comes out of American method-influenced way of working. It was fine for me. They had different ways of seeing their art, but it was. I don't have any good stories of fireworks, because on most days it was a normal working environment.
We heard about the last scene with Jeremy Strong. Another spoiler. When he knows he's not a successor, you know, he's not going to be the guy running the company. He's looking at the river. I read somewhere that he tried to jump into the river. Is that? Could you confirm or deny that story?
50% confirm. The script doesn't end with that. The script ends with him at the tip of New York in Battery Park looking out. But when we filmed it, we often do a bit of improvisation, and it's quite an open process. I encourage that, and we all know that can happen. We don't normally encourage jumping over the barrier and nearly... Well, he didn't nearly fall, but he's in leather-soled shoes. It's a wet, windy day. We're right on the ocean, and he jumped over and he waited for the... Well, he didn't... The actor playing his bodyguard jumped over as well and put his arm around him in character, and it was scary.
In character.
In character. I don't know if he was in character at that moment. It was a scary moment, because, as you all know, you know, if you'd been doing a scene like that, normally on a TV or film set, you would have some frogmen and 2 boats and a fake thing, so that there's no way he could fall in. But if he'd slipped, it would have been a different end to the story of Succession.
So, you know what, the first time you guys noticed that the show was a success? I know if it was a specific moment or a sensation.
I love doing the show, and it's so wonderful. I didn't know there'd be so many people here. It's lovely to see so many people turn up to hear about the show and hear us talk about it. It's very affecting for me. There's a couple of things. The very first day that we did it, Adam McKay shot the pilot, who'd just done The Big Short and done Don't Look Up. He did Anchorman, lots of American movies. And I was on set with him the very first day, and Jeremy was doing the scene where he had the headphones on. He's listening to the Beastie Boys, but he's rapping out loud, and it sounds a little bit silly. And just the way it was shot and the intensity of his performance in the back of the car, I just had that feeling of, like, I don't know if it will be a success in the world, but like, oh wow, I think this might be good. And you don't always feel that on films and TV. Sometimes you're like, this doesn't look quite how I hoped. But this looked good. He had the intensity, the way that Adam was shooting it, and Jeremy. So yeah, that's not knowing that the thing will find an audience, but it's that feeling of like, I think this might be what we're all trying to make the same project here. Yeah, you probably know that thing. And talking to creators, if you're all trying to go in the same direction, you've got a chance of getting there.
Could you tell me a little bit about the casting? If this was a plan B or all the choices were the plan A?
Yeah, they mostly were not that well-known actors when we cast them, apart from Brian. Brian was you offer it to him. He was one of the category of actors who they don't come and do their audition. You just say, please be in it. And he said yes, and so he was our first choice. The rest of them were all auditions, but they were all our first choices. I think the first person to be cast was Kieran Culkin, who plays Roman. When as soon as you saw him on tape, you're like, wow, this is, as a writer, you're like, I didn't know this part was that, and he owned it, and you're like, well, we definitely have him, so we build the rest around him. Sarah was a suggestion of the casting director, Francine Maisler, was brilliant. And Kendall, Jeremy's part, was the hardest one to cast. Hard to find somebody who could sort of show that desire. It's a show that really needs the audience to believe that this thing matters. And there could be a thing, right, of like, who gives a fuck who runs this media company? Like, I don't give a fuck. They're all terrible. And some people do feel like that. Maybe some people who've...
I fucking hate them all, man.
But within that, I think it's important that you feel the weight of it. And so somebody like Jeremy's performance, he makes it feel like it matters to him a lot, even if you as an audience or as a member of the audience aren't so invested. You know that his passion kind of gives the show a bit of weight in the middle of it, a bit of heft.
Why kill the Golden Goose? Why only 4 seasons? You could go on for like 10, 25 seasons.
You're my agent.
If you give me a commission, man.
It's nice wine.
Well done. There's more.
It felt right, It felt like it's called Succession. There's a bit of a promise in that title. It's like a bit of a who killed or something. It's a bit of a promise. You're going to see this, and I think you can stay interested in that big question for quite a long time. But I think it runs out, right? If we started to play tricks, and it's going to be this person. Oh no, pull the rug. Something comes out, so they can't do it, and then it's going to be that person. We didn't want to do that kind of show. We want to do some. We tried to make it narratively interesting, and sometimes we'd not tricks. We would do the traditional things of a narrative to keep you intrigued. But at the heart of it, it's really, I guess, a tragedy, and it felt like in this tragedy, the king needs to die, and then we need to give the audience their answer, and that's the completion of this story. And so I was very sad to miss working with the writers and that group of actors who are so talented, and that world, which felt like a great tone to write. But once you've thought something like that, to think, oh no, let's write a couple of seasons where we just keep spinning the wheels, as you say. We couldn't do it. We'd never worked like that. So it felt like once we'd had that idea and that felt right, it was the way to end.
We had a lot of rumors, since the end of the show. One of them was that you were writing a spin-off with a young Logan Roy, which is quite, tasteful. You'll be happy with it? Please give us the good news, exclusive.
No, I don't know where. I don't know where that came from. I guess it's a nice idea. I don't really like prequels like that, but yeah, we're not doing that unless HBO announce it tomorrow with a different showrunner.
So it was unanimous, the decision of ending the show, or it was like a fight between you guys, all the people producing and writing?
I kept it to the writer's room. So I remember at the beginning when coming in for the 4th season, I said, I think this is what we should do. Having actually talked to some of my key writers before and said, do you think this is what we should do? So we start the writer's room. I said, I think this is what we should do, but the room is always open, so people can say no, or that's crazy, or we can discuss it. So we discussed it. Once we decided that's what we wanted to do, then I presented it to HBO and the executives and people, and everyone was respectful. No one said, oh no, this is something that's got to go and go and go. So it worked like that from us down.
So could you imagine for us right now what these people is doing right now? Do you imagine the lives of Roman and Kendall and Schiff after the end of Succession?
No, I'm not being paid to, so I stop. No, that's not true. But I resist it. My mind doesn't. I feel like that was how far the world was interested in them, and I was interested in them. They have some very complicated interrelationships. There's lots of levels to their sibling, familial relationships. But in a way, they're important in the world because of their relationship to power and the media. And the end of the show is the end of their relationship to... They're still rich, but that's a different kind of power, the direct influence power. And that's when the shutter closes. That they don't have that anymore. And for me, that's when the show loses interest in them. Now, as a human being, you could wonder, oh, what happened to this person or that person? But it's quite hard for me. I can imagine what they might be doing, what sort of things, but my heart isn't in it anymore. That story is over.
You think when you finish the show, it's easier to hate rich people?
This show?
Yeah.
I don't know. Ask the audience.
You hate rich people? Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's difficult because if you become an HBO showrunner. Start out writing from one point of view, and then that's tough. Where do you land your private plane? And
Before the show, you hated rich people.
Well, it's interesting that the show. It's not. No, it's easy to have less sympathy with them, right? Because their lives, they have lots of very, very pressing concerns, worries of most people are taken away, and so you lose a certain amount of sympathy. It's easy to understand somebody who hasn't got a job, who hasn't got a way to get to work. Your heart immediately, you understand that difficulty, and the rich don't have those things that immediately make you feel for them. But I don't. I hate some of the things that the rich do. I hate people who don't think about the wider society, but I would not hate them just for that quality of having money. I don't. That doesn't feel human.
I remember a lot of articles about Succession, but not about the show itself, but the things that provoked, like the quiet luxury thing.
Uh-huh.
You were aware of that, and what do you think about all these people talking about this quiet luxury thing that you're guilty of?
Well, we had a few ideas, about the kind of production design, how the look of the show should be. We had a few feelings. One was that we try not to fetishize, to overly romanticize this wealth. It's tough because sometimes when you shoot a helicopter going through the air, it looks kind of cool, and and the black cars swooping up. It's tough, but we also noticed when we were doing the research that a lot of the spaces that these very, very 0.001% people inhabit, they're in New York, they're in Paris, they're in Madrid, they're in Dubai, they're in Hong Kong, Singapore, and all the rooms, they're kind of these beige hotel rooms looking. You could be anywhere in the world, and it's not very appealing to me. So that was one thing we did want to capture, was like, this world is, you know, if you've got 12 houses, you can't choose all the taps in your different kitchens, right? It's just kind of this international style. And so I don't know if that's what people mean by the quiet wealth, but we did want to capture some of the aesthetic of that money, which is not appealing to me.
I think they were meaning that people was wearing brands that you cannot recognize, but are more expensive than Louis Vuitton or Goyard or whatever. They are really expensive. So was that your idea? No.
No, I think Nick Britell, who I work with, who does the music, and I don't. All I do is I get the music.
It's not yours?
And we put it on the show, and it's like, thank God we're working with a genius. Yeah. And similarly, the costume department, they show these people wearing the clothes, and I'm like, thank you, Michelle, you're a genius. I wouldn't know how to pick the clothes. I feel like I know maybe if it's looking good or right or wrong, and the music. But yeah, those are the collaborations where my knowledge is at its limits.
What was the most difficult thing about Succession? The writing, the balance between comedy and drama. What was the most difficult thing at the time to do it?
Always the most difficult. The tone is getting the tone of the show is the most crucial part, and anyone who's a writer here or director will know that if you find the right tone for a project, so much of the rest of the project comes in after that. And luckily, the tone was there from when I wrote the pilot. It was just, that's the tone, that's the kind of tone I'm comfortable with writing, and it came. So after that, which is kind of binary, either you got it or you haven't, it's the plotting. The plotting is the hardest bit, getting the stories to work. You've got characters who are interesting, we've got a situation in a world we think is interesting, but making sure each episode is fascinating to an audience on like a plot business level, who's going to take over, and more importantly, the character dynamics. Is there enough? I think that the reason that people like yourselves, smart audiences, watch the show is because there's enough in it to keep you interested. Like we present you with enough information, and we've thought about it hard enough that they're like real people, that it's worth you thinking about. What's Shiv thinking? What's Tom thinking in this relationship? So we had a lot of stuff, I think, that was working, but to get each episode to be really compelling just takes a lot of work. So it's the plotting in the room which is the hardest bit.
Is there something you regret? Something you
Three.
So this is a big one. What's your favorite character? Tell us the truth.
No, there is no truth. You could put me on a lie detector, and I like writing them all in different scenes. Tom and Greg, because they were outsiders, and I didn't grow up in that kind of world. Anyway, their perspective is the easiest to write because they're the people who are in the room going, "Oh my God! Like, look at the wine that they've got, and look at that painting, and we're actually on this, going on a cruise on this private yacht." So their perspective is the most easy for me to understand. But when you're writing a scene, I'd be feeling, "Oh, Shiv is the best character to write, and I know exactly what she thinks," and then feel the same about Tom. So you have to feel that as a writer. You have to inhabit all those characters.
Was it difficult to bring comedy in there?
No. No, I think that's one of the things, it's about the show is you could describe it lots of ways. I think it is a satire because it takes something of a cool or a cool, cold look at these people. And comedy comes very naturally, obviously, to satire. And we have lots of myths about the rich and powerful. And we have quite a lot of criticism in the culture. Often bad guys and women, especially bad guys, are rich bad guys. But one of the things that we're maybe not so good at doing is showing how ludicrous and foolish they can be, as well as being powerful and terrifying. And so it was very important to me that the show was not only about how heartless and powerful these rich people were, but about how some of their decisions were idiotic or based on ego or vanity. So to have that comedy was not just, let's put some jokes on top. It's like, that's part of it. Some of these decisions are ludicrous.
You think rich people watching Succession was like the mob watching The Godfather? You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I haven't tried to get feedback from those directly from those families, but I have people like that sometimes I meet somebody after an event like this who comes up and says, "Oh, I work for the Jameson family, and we all think that the Jameson, do you know all about them? Because there's this powerful dad, he's got these sons, they want to take over the company, and it's very bitter, and he changed his will, and it's all very political. It must be based on them, really, right?" And you're like, there's a lot of the rich families with the people having the politics and wanting the money. It's not unusual situation.
So if Succession wasn't a success, was there a plan B for you? You get something on
Well, yeah, like most writers, I had a few different films and TV shows probably gestating or preparing to think about. But once we were doing the show, there was no time to do anything else. But yeah, I would have come up with another show had it crashed.
So what are you doing now? Because you told me nothing, but I don't believe you.
Well, when we were doing the show, I always felt because of a respect for the audience and enjoying people having their own feelings about the characters, and I love it when people feel strongly, like, I know what this character feels at this point, and I know what they would do, and I never like to be the person who says, "Oh no, it's actually this," or it's simply that, because I don't know what the actor is thinking in every moment, and I didn't write every word of every episode. They're often written by my colleagues, so I don't know everything about the show, so I really respect the audience's point of view. This is a long answer, but...
Good.
So I didn't like maybe talking about it so much in public while we were doing it, because it can get a bit weird as you're analysing it as you go, which is a long way round of saying now I'm enjoying being in Catalonia, being in Barcelona, talking about the show to nice audiences. I did one in Copenhagen. I'll probably be back next year again, more wine.
With the spin-off, with the Young Logan Roy show. The premiere will be here. This is the long answer. So why do you think people connected so well with your show? You know, all ages, all nationalities, all over the globe. Why?
Yeah, well, it's very kind of you to say that. It's still not like a Game of Thrones style hit. It's a show.
You don't have your own plane yet?
No, nor a dragon. But yeah, it's very successful, and it's lovely that it's connected with an audience like this. Why? I don't know. And sometimes people ask, you know, when we were doing, who are you going to root for, or how's it going to work? And that's not the way I approach writing. I never think about in a way, the effect on the audience beyond wanting it to be interesting. I hope it'll be interesting, and that's my best idea of what to do. This is an interesting thing. I don't know. Some things people emotionally connect with, and some things you don't. And that's kind of a miracle mystery. And, you know, you can do there's this famous American screenwriting book called Save the Cat. Yeah? So you have your character in the first 10 pages do something nice, save a dog, save a cat, and then the audience all like them. Maybe. I could never do that.
You don't like cats.
So I honestly have no idea why people would like the show, apart from that I hope it's interesting and people come to interesting things. And we worked on it a lot, and we thought about it a lot. So I know that there's a lot in there. Like, there may be things that are unexplained, but they are not things without an answer. So it's worth your time watching the show. Like, it's a bit of a dialogue with the audience. Like, we're going to tell you a load of stuff. You can make your assumptions. We know some things. So I think that's important, and that's the kind of show that I like to watch, where, as an audience member, I'm respected. You've thought about it really hard, and so it's worth me. You don't have to think about every show really hard, but it's worth my time to spend with you.
You know, my favorite bit of the show is candle wrap. I think it's amazing. L to the OG. So I would like to know how many takes of Jeremy doing the rap, because the guy seems intense.
Yeah, not many. He, like, probably 2 or 3 takes. I mean, he was brilliant. Yeah, because I remember we put it in the script, just as not with the words, with like, and then
he sings.
Yeah, Kendall raps to his dad. It's based on a couple of things we'd seen of rich guys doing that kind of thing. And after the
Be specific.
I can't remember. Yeah, they exist. If you Google it. And after the read-through, I think he was a bit like, really? Is this going to be kind of cheesy? Is it going to work? But he worked. I didn't write the lyrics. Will Tracy and McKay wrote the lyrics. I'm not good at writing songs. And Nick Britell, who does all the music, wrote the music. Yeah, and he just really practiced. And when he did it, I mean, I know it is meant to be cringy or embarrassing.
Brilliant.
It's good, right? I like it. I would put it on. He did it so well, and also like that very first scene. If he'd sort of winked at the audience and let himself off the hook in that way that would make it less embarrassing for him to do, it would fall flat, right? But it's his. He just thinks it's fucking great, and like everyone's loving this, right? And that commitment means that it works because it feels real. So, and I think that commitment meant he knew it. He'd practiced. He only needed to do it 2 or 3 times. We often shoot with sometimes 3, sometimes even 4 or 5 film cameras running film, which is expensive. So we didn't have to run it a lot of times.
So before going to the audience, at some point was Kendall the winner of the show? No?
No. I mean, in the writer's room, we discussed everything. Like, it wasn't a foregone conclusion. I knew that the end of the show would feel down, not up. And I think I knew that none of the kids would probably win. But we discussed every possibility and felt what was real, and also looked at all our research of what happens in these kind of situations. And sometimes, like Shari Redstone, Sumner Redstone's daughter, did take over at Paramount and CBS. So it's not impossible, but usually it's not what happens. So most of the show, for the business stories, we follow what happens, big media, medium-sized media firms are under a lot of pressure, and they're merging or being bought by tech or failing or dashing for streaming and seeing if they can make it out alive.
How was the writer's room? The writer's room was like tens or?
Oh, no.
Really?
Lovely. It's the best part of the show for me is a group of very smart people who are all my friends now, and lots of them were going in, but it's a very good group where we talk about our families, emotions, some relationships. So there's a lot of fuel comes out of real life, and you have to feel comfortable sharing those stories with each other. So I try to make it feel like a comfortable place to be. It's lovely. Honestly, the show was hard to make. It was, hoping that we'd do a good final season was very, very stressful and anxiety making. So honestly, I don't miss all of that, but I do miss going to the room with the writers.
So we're going to go to the audience now, and pay attention here. I have a coaster, good one. He's going to sign it. Waystar Royco, you see it from here. And the best question, got it.
Who judges the best question?
You.
Okay.
Okay? So make an effort. Javier, guess.
And I'm sorry that I'm another British-American person who can't speak Spanish, and it's nice of you all to come and listen to me speak English. But I can take questions in Catalan and Spanish as well with the earpiece here, so thank you and sorry for that.
¿Quién se va a llevar? Esto parece un sorteo, el precio justo. ¿Quién se va a llevar el posavasos? Who's going to take it home?
Hello. Sorry, yeah.
Where?
Hi. Hello. Here at
Okay, yeah, we see you.
Here, hello. Well, first of all, congratulations. The show is amazing. One of the things that interested me the most was that one of the questions that the show makes is it fair that some people have those inheritances? What do you think about inheritance? Do you think, is it fair? Is it democratic? Should we abolish inheritance? Is this the best fucking question?
Yeah, I think you could. It's a very strong start.
Yeah, I know.
It's a very strong start. I was thinking because another title for the show could almost be Inheritance. It's a big problem. It's a big problem, right? The disparities of wealth in all Western countries, and this narrowing to an extraordinary degree the portion of the population who have all this wealth. It's a big problem. And yeah, I think that it's not for this room, but looking at taxes on inheritance is going to become something that has to happen in lots of different societies. But I guess the bit that was most interesting for us is thinking about you ask, I guess it's on that point of like, do you hate the rich? And the show, I guess, in its best version, walks a tightrope of saying, look at the extraordinary power and influence these kids get, and the ease of their lives and the sort of disregard for other people, the arrogance that breeds, and it sort of can't help but breed if you grow up in that bubble. But also, I do have some sympathy to be a royal child, to be the son or daughter of a king or queen, to get stamped with a royal name, or to be a Redstone or a Murdoch. As soon as you come in the room, for everyone to go, they're part of that family. There is something hellish about that as well, and so maybe it doesn't feel so hellish when you put your cheek on the soft sheets of your private plane, but it is a kind of mental hell, and a lot of them suffer, right, with drink or drugs, or they go off the rails in different ways. So it treads a tightrope, and yeah, it's a problem.
Someone's want to try and beat that for the coaster. The coaster is here.
I don't know if I'm going to beat it, but either way. First of all, I had an equal amount of fun and madness watching it, so thank you for it. I'm going to ask the same question I asked to my TV while I was watching the final one. Why Tom? Why the fuck you choose Tom? Out of all the background characters, why? And in which point you reached that moment when you said it has to be him? I don't know.
Who did you think it was going to be?
I don't know, like thinking in a mad way. To some point I thought it was going to be Greg, but of course it navigated so much that it was hard to tell.
That would be a great end. Greg getting it all.
We talked about everyone. I think Tom, there are these guys, often guys in these organizations who make their way up, who make themselves amenable to power, who make themselves useful, often do dirty work, or they're the flatterers, and they can sometimes be a bit grey, so no one assassinates them, in the business environment, and so that they drift up and up and up. And so I'd thought from a couple of seasons back, in like season 2, and it's already definitely there at the end of season 3, when there's a sort of alliance between Tom and Logan. Tom goes behind his wife's back. So for a long while, I'd been thinking, you know what? I always thought, I think these kids probably go home at about 5, 6 o'clock. Who would stay in the office late? Tom would. He'd be one of those people, right? It would be, yeah. So he'd be the last in the office. And so from quite a long while back, I thought, it might be Tom.
Hello, welcome to Barcelona. I was wondering, how was the process of working with directors, and how much they involved to giving the decisions?
Yeah, a lot. It was great working with the directors. It's a big show of collaboration. I've been talking a lot about myself and my decisions, but the writers' room, very collaborative, group effort. My relationship with all the directors, very collaborative, especially Mark Mylod, who directed many of the big episodes, the one where Logan dies this season and the last 2 episodes, and he always directed the first and last. And he comes from, his background is British comedy. He then went on to do big shows like Entourage and Game of Thrones and Shameless, but I come from British comedy, half hours, and so we kind of had a comedy understanding of each other, and I think comedy is good at not bullshitting. It's good at like what's really happening here. So we had a good level of communication. So those collaborations were very important. And yeah, the directors come in. It's the American system where sometimes they come in. They maybe only have a couple of weeks of preparation, and so it's a little bit condensed. It's not like it would be on a movie or probably on a UK and probably Spanish show where there might only be one director for the whole run of 6 or 8 episodes, so they have that ownership of the whole thing. But you do a lot of intense collaboration, and then you're there on the day with them. I'd go to set every day and always discussing what notes to give actors, and so it's very collaborative.
So thanks for coming. I was devastated with Shiv's ending, but I think it was brilliant, all the endings. But I wanted to ask, they asked about Tom. I wanted to ask when, because you said, okay, we thought about Tom being the final successor, like when at the ending of season 3. So when is the moment that you talked in the writer's room, okay, this is gonna be Shiv's ending? Like, not only like she's gonna marry the one successor, she is married to him, but she's gonna also carry a child with him. So I think it was like a classic Shakespearean, because it's like the wife ending. But how did you approach it with the actor, with how she ran through the whole season? How did you approach it in the writer's room?
Yeah. I guess it was, what did we had a few different things. We had the business story, but in particular, I guess we knew we had this very strong betrayal that was the end of the previous season, and it felt like there was a promise to the audience that we were going to address that. So we always knew we would have one episode where their relationship exploded, which is there's a big argument on a balcony, and they kind of say the things that have never been said. I guess quite a lot of the show is about lying, right? The most scenes in this show, people are not telling the truth to each other, and when they do tell the truth, it's kind of as a tactic. So even then, it's a half version of the truth. So I think we get an extra amount of power when people start saying things that are just true, and they do that on that balcony. So in a way, we knew that we had that emotional ending, and then it was possible that they would explode from there, and that would be the kind of end of that relationship. But I think you see these relationships in the media, in the world, of power, where you don't know what the emotional component is anymore, or if it's still there. And we were interested in showing how one of those might happen. And I feel like at the end you don't know where they're going. And as I say, I've sort of decided that I'm not thinking about it. But I think it's very plausible that the emotion has gone, but the power relationship is rather important. So I think that was the thing that we were interested in getting to with Shiv.
Okay. Please. Perdona, aquí. Samarreta groga, pobre nano porta 2 hores amb el dit.
Gràcies. ¿Algún problema si la fallamos en català?
No.
No, vale. Well, and just one thing in English. Thank you so much for coming to Barcelona. But I mean, the question in Catalan.
Oh,
yes. Sorry.
I can translate for you as well.
Si Logan hagués tingut una mort una mica més dramàtica, que s'hagués prolongat i hagués tingut l'oportunitat de despedir-se d'algun dels seus fills, de qui s'hagués despedit i què li hagués dit?
I did. Did you
get it?
I didn't.
No. He said if Logan had the choice to say goodbye to one of his sons, which one?
Oh.
What one would choose? And
Is that a real question, or did you just want the?
what would he say to the one?
Or what would he say?
Yeah, and which one? Both.
It may be the wine talking, but I think it was, my feeling was like Roman. I think it would be Roman. That was the one, we always felt like he was the one who had an emotional... I think they agree.
And he would say like, fuck off or something?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess the men of that generation don't tend to say thank you. Yeah, what would he say? He wouldn't say I love you, but he would say something which meant that Roman knew meant I love you, but he couldn't use those words to to his son, I don't think. We'd have to figure it out in the writer's room, what the Logan version is of I Love You.
You should do the spin-off, the young Logan Roy. What else? There?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, let's.
Hi.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you about your writing process. How is it from the moment you have the idea? How do you start to writing it down? How many writers do you write with? And if you have any block, like if you get blocked, how do you manage it? Thanks.
Good. I won't take too long. I could talk about these things for a long time because I like talking about the writing. I don't get blocked on the whole. I probably now get blocked straight away for 3 years, never write anything again. But especially a TV show is very good at keeping you can't. It's like we're filming in 2 weeks. Like, you're blocked, well, get unblocked, because we need the pages, you know. You don't have, in a way, the luxury, but you just have to write something. And guess what? It sounds like maybe you're a writer. What you discover is, it's not what you hoped. You look at it in the morning, it feels a bit shitty. But it always does, right? And what you have to do is do the next draft and do the next draft and do the next draft. So that's what my process is thinking of the great idea, thinking it's going to be amazing, writing it, looking at it in the morning and thinking I'm a fraud, this is bullshit, you know, they're going to throw me out of the Writers Guild and I'll never work again. And then slowly, hopefully, you work and work and work and try and keep those voices out of your head as you make it better and better and better again. And so that's my process. In terms of the room, some of them were people I already knew when we get together, this writer's room. And then the way that I would try to find new people, would be just to read scripts, read lots and lots of scripts, and just look for lines or parts of a script where I felt like I've never seen that done before. I've never seen that relationship expressed that way. I've never seen that feeling expressed that way. And it didn't have to be like a whole perfect script, because if that was in there, I felt like, oh, that's something that we can use, and then you discover that the writer has lots of other different qualities, or knows about business, or comes from a big family with a terrifying dad or something, which is very helpful for our room.
Good answer. Cheers. Kimes.
Hi. I would like to ask you about the acting, because I kept thinking when I was watching the show that all the actors were incredible. And I thought it could not be a coincidence. Even the ones with 1 or 3 lines, is it a thing of the actors, a thing of the casting, the writing, maybe the direction? I don't know.
Well, thank you. I guess it's casting to find brilliant people. I think there are a lot of amazing actors out there. It doesn't seem to be. It seems possible to find brilliant people. And then maybe, hopefully, what you notice is we were keen to think about everyone, to be interested in everyone, and that if you've just got a character for one scene, to try and give the sense that they haven't just come in to be security guard 1 or the editor, but to think, oh, this is somebody, they've had a bad morning this morning and they're not so pleased to be in at work. And so if you can give that actor something like that to work with, I think you're much more likely to get an exciting experience and feel that richness of the world.
We still have like half an hour for questions, so
Hola.
Be calm.
Hola. Perdó. Sorry. Hi. Hi. Yeah, I'm gonna ask in Catalan, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Let's see if that works. If not,
Yeah, let's hope.
Yeah, I think so. Hello.
hello. Good.
Hola. Voldria preguntar sobre la vaga que s'ha fet als Estats Units aquests últims mesos de guionistes, i a la vegada com la sèrie funciona una mica o dona la sensació de que és un hack en el sistema i de que parla una mica de com tota aquesta gent pren decisions en reunions sobre molta gent i la sèrie d'alguna forma posa en qüestió tot això. M'agradaria saber quina és la teva opinió sobre si és més a l'equilibri entre sortir als carrers i cremar-ho tot o aconseguir una forma de convèncer algú amb diners i llavors vendre-li el teu missatge.
There's two parts to that question, I think. One is about the writer's strike and the process of negotiating, and the other, are you also asking about about getting one's work bought by people? Is that right? Yeah. So the writer's strike came to a good conclusion for writers, and it was a good. I'm British, but I'm in the WGA because that's where I was working, and yeah, I supported the strike action strongly. It's great work, I think, by their negotiating committee, and yeah, I think it seemed like the studios were trying to play very hardball, and it didn't work because there was a good level of solidarity, and I think the requests were in a good, reasonable area. We were all worried about AI and people need to be able to make a living. So I was very pleased to see the union hold together and for us to get really what seems like a really good outcome. So that was good for union power and for writers. In terms of selling your stuff, yeah, the climate's always changing, right? And there's I don't know. I've just come off the back of having a big success, and I like the people who I work for. So I've got quite a sunny attitude where sudden execs seem great, and your show is well received, and you get awards. And it's not always like that. Sometimes you meet the bad execs who give you the bad notes for pages and pages, and the show's a disaster. And I haven't got a route map through executive world. Maybe I guess I feel, and maybe it's because I'm feeling optimistic because of my experience. But I guess most of those people, even in Hollywood, I think, have a degree of humanity, and they went into the industry, even if it's been ground out of them a bit, because they liked storytelling. At least there's a percentage of people like that. So if you can find a human being there, I think they're still listening and wanting interesting voices and good stories. I think those people exist. So if you can find them, I think they will be receptive to interesting work. But there are people who have been sort of eaten by the machine and only thinking about algorithms and demographics and what will work in a way which is not useful to a creative person.
More questions?
Hello, Jessie. This series is based, and you mentioned that you pulled some data and information from different sources, from monarchy to big corporates. And all of these are very manly environments. It's a world dominated by men. And when you have those few women like Shiv or Marsha, you have to notice in them certain male details or character in order to be able to survive in that kind of world. So I would like to know what's the process to build that kind of character for the series, and if you had, how many women were in the writer's room for that purpose, and if that you think makes a change or change the perspective of how are you building the evolving of the story?
Yeah, good question. And yeah, it's one of the things when we were researching it that it's a very male world. The top level of big corporations is shockingly white and shockingly male. And because with the kind of show that we are, which was trying to take a peek behind the curtain, this is what it's really like, it felt potentially uncomfortable, but important that we did that it was men that we were showing in those positions. But that didn't mean that the room was 50-50. I always wanted it to be about half and half, men and women. And that's important, I think, for lots of reasons. Partly it's good when we're thinking about those women, and I think you recognize something which lots of people have seen, which is, I think the women and there's a bunch of different ways they can do it, but they have to, if they want to be comfortable in that environment, they have to make themselves amenable to male power, and there's different ways of doing that. And Shiv and Jerry, you can see what it costs them and what they stand to gain, but they also, and there were plot lines where you saw very much how from Logan's misogyny down, how it filters through the company and comes to make it a pretty much impossible place for them to succeed. I think it's important to have the women's voices in the room to get that right, but also because the show is about masculinity as well, and what it's like for the men inside that shape of a environment. And there's like the most vivid example is the bore on the floor, kind of like red in tooth and claw, kind of old-fashioned bullying masculinity, which is there from Logan. And it's good for men and women to think about how that feels and how it works. So it was important to me to have that gender mix in the writers' room. Plus, they're just brilliant writers. So there's some amazing playwrights in the room. Alice Birch and Lucy Preble and Susan Sunhee Stanton, and so they're brilliant voices.
Sign this.
Oh, we need 3 tiles at least.
Yeah.
Hi.
Here.
I'm a huge fan of the show, and especially Roman and Jerry relationship. I think they're super interesting. So my question is about Roman's ending. That martini, did it mean something? Because we often see Jerry with a martini in some scenes, and he also smiles. Or I don't know. What was he thinking exactly? Thank you. Thank you.
We recently published the script, and so you could, if you're intrigued, you could either buy it or probably find it on the internet somewhere, what we wrote for the stage directions. And some of them are quite, like about Shiv and Tom, it says quite precisely what we thought they should be doing. I think it's less so for Roman, and so I wouldn't, in a way, like to stamp my meaning on the end of it. But we definitely did think about the relationship between Martinis and Jerry and them being. I'm not saying, I couldn't say whether or not what that martini means, but it's there to think about.
Who else?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
So thank you for being here. I wanted to ask about the writing as a living thing, for saying so. Like, as so many times when you see a second season of a show, you see how the first season shaped the direction. And I wanted to ask about the writing as a living thing, also in terms of how the writer's room may have evolved from the beginning of the show, if the method had been developed somehow, and if you started filming before finishing the scripts of the whole season, and pretty much that. Thank you.
We always would have the arc of the whole season decided before we started shooting, and so all the locations and the shape of the season. So in the last one, they would know that. Well, actually, the cast wouldn't, but the production would know what was going to happen at the end, so we could plan. But probably only the first 3 or 4 or 5 scripts were written, and maybe some early drafts. And so we would be writing and rewriting through the season. And I think that's good, because it gives you this kind of tension and drive, and sort of, the show is a little bit about people under extreme pressure. And so having some of that in the writing, I think, is good. And in terms of the development of the room, we learn a lot. I think also what was important about our process was, although we were an American show on HBO, the room was always in London. I lived in London. I've always lived in London, and I still do. And so we had a lot of distance from the US, and I think that for a satire and one about this New York family, it was maybe not bad for us to be not in New York, not in LA, but to be in these weird rooms, which we were in London, which weren't anywhere near as fancy or as well stocked with food and drink as they would have been in LA. And it's healthy to have a little bit to if you're writing about the private plane, not to be on the private plane, you know. So I think that was one thing we learned.
Aquí.
Hola, buenas tardes. Good evening. Lo digo en castellano porque me sale más fácil.
Yes, espera un minuto.
Sí, claro. Thank
No.
you, Jesse, for being here. Una de las cosas que a mí más me ha enganchado del show es los personajes, plot, sí, pero la manera de escribir, la manera de fluir y el ritmo, ¿no? de la serie. Entonces, si yo, como escritor, si yo querría ser Jesse Armstrong nacional, ¿sí? aparte de comprarme un traje y ser un poquito más elegante de ahora. No lo busco, no lo busco. ¿Qué libros debería leer? ¿Qué shows debería ver? ¿Qué actitud debería tener hacia mi escritura? Gracias.
He should pay for the answer.
Oh, it's very kind. Yeah, I think, what's an honest answer to that? I think you know, it's the stuff that was meaningful to me when I starting to write, you know, probably British and American sitcoms, like big famous ones, you know, Seinfeld and The Simpsons and Larry David. I guess a lot of comedy. I think comedy is good for rhythm, you know. But the first thing I was going to say is you will find your own way, right? You're not going to. So you have to. Those shows that are important to you are the ones that are going to form your own voice. But I would say watch a lot, read a lot. I like poetry. I don't know if it is in the writing or the show at all, but I think, you know, comedy is often short and pays attention to rhythm and to precise word choices, because, you know, one word is funny and another word is not funny, and there's a similarity in poetry, you know, word choice. It's not you can't. You never know where the idea is going to get to come from. You know, it can be a business book, it can be an article in a financial newspaper, or it can be something that your mother says. You know, those influences can come from anywhere, and you have to have your aerial up in the sky to be receiving the stuff.
Very nice one.
Hi. Now that you've mentioned poetry, I had a question about the literary references in the last season and the link with the poem Dreams on 29. I was curious if it was like a clue to the audience to decipher the ending, or more of an inspiration for the season in some way. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the people who haven't noticed the title of the final episodes in season breadcrumb trail or puzzle to fix. It just so happened that I liked that poem, and it fitted very well for the finale of the first season, and so we used it. And then it occurred to me that some other lines worked for the other finales, but it was just a sort of riff or a thing that seemed appealing. But I felt like if we did it at the end of every season, it was going to become like James Joyce's Ulysses or T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, and people would think, oh my goodness, there's something to be unlocked here. And there wasn't really anything. There's maybe an atmosphere in that poem, but it's a very dark poem that is only linked in the most vague way.
Hi. Hello, good evening. Okay, all through the evening you've been talking about these families and corporations that you've inspired the series on, and I wanted to know how was the process of documentation before writing, because it seems that many of the decisions that you made, of course, were inspired on how this works in the real world. So were there interviews, press? How did you get to that very deep knowledge of how these things works? Because this type of people are private about some of that information, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. But I think a good thing for writers is that people have asked this about it before, and like, did you have any secret sources or secret meetings? There was even this news report that when Rupert Murdoch got divorced from Jerry Hall, that it was in their divorce agreement that she couldn't talk to writers from Succession. That it was reported. I don't.
Is that true?
I don't know. She certainly hasn't talked to us. It was not some. It was never something that we did. It wasn't something that I looked for. I think very occasionally I'd had a lunch with a really powerful person, and I remember the feeling from being in the room of like, oh my God, I'm inside. I'm finding out what these super titans really think, and you get this very strong feeling of like, wow, I'm an insider at this. I know what the world is like. I can feel it, and I'd keep these notes and be like, oh my God, and come out of the meeting and look at the notes, and it would be like, the big deal is tough. It would be like, the feeling is strong, but usually what they tell you is nothing. They've done hundreds of these lunches. They're not going to probably tell you any super secrets. So all the most useful research was all in books, and it's all there. You know, all these people are constantly curating their the picture of them in the world, their image, and they have PR people, and they're putting stories into Vanity Fair or The New Yorker, talking to journalists, putting a spin on what's happening inside a family. And there's journalists who followed them around, so you can find it out, all of it from books, and it's much easier, it's much less confrontational, it's much quicker, and it's all there. And so we just read and read and read, and Disney War, and there's loads of books about the Murdochs, loads of books about Hearst, William Randolph Hearst. You can get stories from everywhere. So we read a lot, but we didn't do so much of the lunches, because I found that they're compared to you can read a whole book in 3 or 4 hours in the time you'd go to meet some rich banker who would tell you nothing.
Idiot.
Hi, thank you for your time, first of all. And I wanted to ask you about the characters of Jess and Connor and all these ancillary characters around them, because I feel like you guys really dosify them throughout the seasons, and yet they have very crucial scenes by the last one. Connor's conversation with Logan at the diner, and for me, Jess's encounter with Greg in the election episode. What do these characters mean to you and to the writers in the room, their development throughout the show?
Thank you. And What do they mean? I guess they're like people you get to know, and someone like Jess, who is Kendall's assistant, she's probably in the first season, or certainly the first episodes, we probably did write, Kendall's assistant. But then, we cast Juliana Cranfield, very talented actor, and you get to know her and you see what she can do, and it can get a little bit almost hallucinogenic by the end, because you've got so many options and you know all these people, they're all probably brilliant actors, and you could go in any direction, and so you can't do that because you'd in the pecking order. When she decides to leave Kendall, just to show a shard, a sharp little incident of how she feels about that world. So they're like little luxuries that you can sometimes allow yourself if you think that the audience is allowed them to. So you have to use them sparingly, but it's lovely to be able to do.
Yes, hello. Well, I was curious about, maybe you explained in one of these last questions, but I was nervous to ask, but I wasn't listening at all. I was curious about how it was writing and producing a TV show about the mass media, about problems of a mass media family, in literally one of the biggest over-the-tops and media companies and of massive communications of the world. Did you receive any kind of, not pressure, but threats, and all kind of stuff? It was easy for the crew. Did you have any? It was easy for you.
Yeah, so HBO's owned by Warner, and we never had anything like that, any threats or pressure about content. It was weird because even while we were making the show, it was that Warner Media was bought by AT&T, a big Texan telecommunications company, rather more conservative, right-wing than Warner, and it was sold by AT&T to Discovery, another media company, and they took one of these hits when you hear the figures, you can't believe it, but they lost like $40 billion on their buying and selling of the company, but none of that ever reached us. So we would do stories about media ownership, but I guess they were, we never got any pressure like that.
We're going to have the last question. Hi. Who has the microphone?
Hi, I wanted to ask what happened to Roman's kid and wife from the first episode?
Throw it away. Not answering it. So this is a good insidery question for people who... I think Roman is wearing a wedding ring. Yes. Thank you. I don't think we say that it's his wife. I think in the pilot script, it says it's his wife, and I think the idea was that it's his wife, and she'd have some kids. They would have kids. Once we'd shot the pilot, it became clear, like, it just didn't feel right. Roman didn't feel married. He didn't feel like he had kids. So we cut the bits which mentioned him being married. I guess we could have CGI'd out every frame of his wedding ring, but maybe he's just a weird guy who likes to wear wedding ring. So we made Grace into his girlfriend, which seemed like it fitted, and the kids were her kids. But yeah, it was one of those things. We didn't change. You shoot the pilot, and then you find out whether you're going to make the series, and there's like a gap of a year between. So you get a chance to revisit, change some things. Jerry wasn't in the pilot. We got to introduce her, even in this very male world. It felt like, yeah, there are a few female executives, and it was good to have her perspective. We did that with Roman, and there were probably a couple of other things that we managed to tweak in between. But you've caught me out, and you're not getting this because it's very mean to ask about it. No.
Ladies and gentlemen, the real OJ, Jesse Armstrong.